Hi, my name is Chet from Avion Technology here in the Chicagoland area, and this is a part of my weekly webinars, webcasts about technology for non-technology people, geek for non-geeks. Today I'm going to talk about a topic which all digital agencies, all design agencies, and many of you might have experienced, which is how do we finish a web project? So web projects are notorious for not having a finish line. Unlike, let's say, building a building or other projects out there, defining the end for a software project is insanely difficult. I have seen developers go insane. I mean, not literally, but figuratively, because the projects never ended. I have seen clients lose their mind because their projects never ended, and yeah, a lot of ideas actually never come to fruition because it just goes on and on without an end. So this is my little video about how to finish a web project. Hopefully you guys will like it. If you do, please subscribe to my channel or give me a like. Uh, so number one, have a functional specification document if you're doing the project in a waterfall mode, or have your user stories in place if you're using Agile, Scrum, essentially. But have some kind of a master document to keep track of your spec. The reason being that we live in a world where technology moves really fast. Once you start development, you might see, oh, my competitor has done that. I want that included. Oh, the market has changed. I need to get this done, and the specs keep on changing. And so to avoid any disputes arising out of that, have a functional specification document in place, which is being signed by both you and the developer or the user stories. And secondly, have a change management document so that you're both documenting the changes that have been done. This will save you a ton of headache, especially towards the end, because that's usually, I have seen 90% of project issues are actually about the scope. One person sees something as, oh, this is so intuitive, why didn't you include this? And the developer says, hey, what is intuitive for you is 80 lines of code for me and 5 days of work. So no, I'm not going to do it. So to avoid these differences in perception, it's always a good idea to have a functional specification document in place and a change management document in place. The second thing I would strongly advise is actually to do an HTML prototype, or if it's an app, to use something like Balsamic or InVision to create a prototype of your app, because we are in a visual medium, right? The web design, web development is a visual medium. No matter how many lines of functional specs that I write on paper, or no matter how many UML diagrams I draw, you will never be able to fathom what your final product is going to look like till you actually have a working prototype. So I always say have an HTML prototype in place. So once you've got your functional specs in place, the second step, have your prototype in place so that the end user can click through all the different screens and know the project's flow, and that raises the comfort level up several notches, because now for the first time you have seen your product, you have seen your project. The third thing, and this is a shout to all my QA, my friends in QA, quality assurance, all the testers. Have your test cases in place if it's possible. Test cases, I have seen, are often the backbone of a project and are often the most neglected part of a project. Test cases is something that we usually forget, because we assume that, oh, the registration form has to work like this, right? But when you actually define the test case, it 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 kind of gives the developer a good guideline of how the system should perform. I'll give you a small example. Everyone knows that we have a five number zip in the registration form for the US. So the zip code is always 5 digits, right? Now, if your developer is overseas and he has a he uses a 6 digit field for the zip code, uh, you are probably going to say, you know what, that's wrong because the market is the US, I am from the US, and this is what I need to get done. But from the developer's perspective, he's correct because that was something which was not defined when he got the specs. This goes back to what I always say. What might seem very intuitive for you might not necessarily be very intuitive for the developer. So to avoid these issues of ambiguity, always take the time out to define your test cases. There's a lot of examples out there for how to write test cases. Even if you can have the basic test cases in place, the form fields, how they should function. What are the devices the website or the app should function on, which browsers it should function on. Even if you have just the basic test cases in place, it gives you a very good framework for creating what is called the user acceptance testing. And that's my next point. So the first thing I mentioned to you was a functional spec. The second was having a prototype. The third was writing test cases. The fourth is have a user acceptance testing framework in place. So it's your job as the client, right, or as the developer, to define the conditions that have to be met in order to call this project successful. And that's something that you have to write at the start of a project, right? So you say, okay, this project, this software is going to work on these devices, on these browsers. This is where the server is going to be located. If it's AWS, it's going to be in the US East region. So you just write down all these different things at the start of the project so that you avoid ambiguities later. One of the things that I've noticed in the user acceptance testing is it is always helpful to have a severity matrix, right? I always classify all my bugs in three classifications. S1 being mission critical bugs, the system just crashes. S2 is functionality level issues, most of the application is working correctly, but there's some functionality which is not working the way it should. Maybe the payment gateway is not working as it should. Maybe the UPS shipping gateway is not sending the right parameters, little things like that. And S3 are the cosmetic issues, in some image not being rendering properly, some text not being rendering properly. So divide your issues into three types: S1 being most severe, S2 being moderately severe, and S3 being absolutely cosmetic issues. I always say that it's a developer's job to get the S1 and the S2 issues fixed before your website goes live, right? Because that's mission critical. Yeah, that's what you've paid for. That's what needs to get done. Period. But there's S3 issues that can always be taken care of once the website has gone to live. But at least a majority of the S3 issues should be done before. But some of the S3 issues can always get done after the website has been commissioned, after the website has gone live. And there's a reason why I say that. Again, I have seen a lot of fights, a lot of arguments actually happen over little S3 issues, right? Oh, this is this word is not indented. This should have been written in bold. This is not italicized. Things like that. You're a developer. Ultimately, we are in the services industry, right? A website is still made by human beings, not machines. And I always say that take care of your web developer, and he will take care of you. Towards the end of any project, developers want to get paid. They're human beings. They want to feed their families. They want to pay their bills. They want to get paid at the end of the project. And the more that a project gets delayed, and this is something I'm telling you from personal experience as a former developer, that the more that a project gets delayed, the more the developer loses interest in the project. That's because he needs to pay his bills, so he's going to start taking on some other work, and he's going to gravitate towards what gives him money, right? So it's kind of a handshake. So you tell him, what? Yeah, you've got 95% of the things covered. I'm going to pay you. Here is the payment. But once I pay you, once the site goes live, make sure you take care of these 5 things. I have seen, again, from personal experience, that if you are a little hesitant to make a payment, Have the money in escrow. Use some kind of an escrow system. This way, your developer knows that the money is there, and you know that you're not going to pay it until your job gets done, till you're completely satisfied. The only thing I usually suggest is that make sure it's fair, because you want your developer to complete your project, to not drop the ball and go to another project. So those are my top 4 points. Just to recap, uh, number one, have a functional spec in place, or have your user stories in place, well defined at the start of the project. Number two, have a very good change management protocol, very good change management documentation, a very good change management process. Number three, build out your prototypes after the analysis phase, because that's going to give you, for the first time, a very good idea of what your product will look like, what your project's flow will be like. Number four, um, create your user acceptance testing framework, right? Using the S1, S2, S3 methodology that I spoke about, so that you have a pretty fair and reasonable framework for project acceptance, where you get what you want on time, but at the same time, the developer doesn't get hamstrung and he gets paid for his services. Now I'm going to come to the last point, which is always use a very good tool for project management. There's the ones that I like, for people with moderate knowledge of technology, I usually suggest Trello. Open up a Trello board and have Trello cards. This Trello is an excellent tool to get you past the finish line, especially for making very good buckets of. I usually do 3 buckets in Trello. In one bucket, I have all the pending items. In another bucket, I have all the items that are in progress. And the third bucket, I have all the items that have been done. So the product owner simply moves one card across different buckets. Very easy, very intuitive. So if you're technologically, if your knowledge of technology is moderate, I suggest Trello. If you're advanced, use Jira. It has both Kanban and Scrum in Jira. So if you're a Scrum Master, I would suggest using Jira. If you're neither of those, if you're absolutely new to tech, I have seen Excel sheets work the best. In fact, I have seen a lot of legendary project managers still rely on Excel sheets, because nothing works like an Excel sheet, like a spreadsheet. So that was that. Just a quick 5 point discussion about how to get your project past the finish line. Just before I go, a project means problems, period. I have seen very rarely, and this is not just for me, for anywhere, for a project to start and then to end without any problems. You're absolutely going to encounter problems in your project. You might call it challenges, issues, concerns, whatever. That's just semantics. But you're always going to run into some issues, some concerns. The key is how you manage them, right? So the more proactive you can be in forecasting those issues, the better the outcomes will be. And I think that's probably one of the most neglected parts of product management, is to be able to forecast issues. I always recommend spending some time upfront with your development team, um, and letting them know that, brainstorming on what might be there, what might be the challenges. Again, I'm a little bit biased towards developers, so I know it's not always the developer's fault. There are sometimes APIs which do not work correctly, servers which do not work correctly. A website or an app it's not a monolith. It's a collection of many different parts, many different things which are working in tandem. If one part goes down, we usually we get pretty we get crazy with the developer, but often it's not the developer's fault. There's just so many moving parts to a website. So I always say, give the developer the benefit of the doubt. Take good care of the developer, and 9 times out of 10, pay him on time, and 9 times out of 10, he will take care of you. The relationship between you and your developer is just like the relationship between you and your CPA, or you and your doctor, or you and your lawyer. It's probably going to be there for a couple of years, and it's a symbiotic, it's a synergistic relationship. So you both have to take good care of each other, because it's you're going to at least spend a couple of years working together. So the more time you invest in it, the better it is. Thank you so much. This is Chet here from Avion Technology, and this is my email. If you have any questions, send me an email, or these are our contact details. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.